guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Cody podcast. So today I have a very special guest, which, we've chatted once before via podcast, but it's been a long time. And so I'm going to welcome Melissa Urban to the podcast, which you may know her from Whole30. I think that's probably the thing that, most people probably know you from, but you've done many things. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And all that fun stuff.
I can, Cody. It's good to chat with you again because it has been a really long time. I am the Whole30 co-founder and CEO. I have written 10 books, I think, mostly about the Whole30, but I also wrote a book in 2022 on boundaries called The Book of Boundaries. I have a very popular hair tutorial, so I feel like that's probably my legacy. But yeah, I'm a mom, and I like to run, and I like to hike, and I like to read books, and that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So, for anyone that might not be familiar with the Whole30, do you want to give us a little quick refresher? What kind of sets it apart from any sort of other, I guess, like elimination style, protocol?
Yes. I always like it when you open with this question because I think a lot of people have heard of Whole30. At this point, it's like a household name, but I don't know that everyone knows exactly what it is. I think a lot of people think it's a fad diet or a weight loss diet, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So the Whole30 is a 30-day elimination and reintroduction program designed to help identify hidden food sensitivities. We've also built a lot of behavior and habit change research into the program. So we're also addressing people's habits and emotional relationship with food and their bodies. So the program eliminates for 30 days foods that are commonly problematic to varying degrees, according to the literature. And then you reintroduce those food groups one at a time, very carefully and systematically, so you can figure out what works best for you in your unique context. And then you take those learnings to build your own joyful, sustainable, personalized, what we call food freedom plan in life after.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's a great way to put it because I feel like you said, so many people misunderstand it, which leads me to my next question is what's something that you feel like people still seem to misunderstand regardless? I mean, it's been around for over a decade, yet people are still like fad diet this. So
yeah. I mean, I think so a lot of people come to the Whole30 wanting to lose weight. And I acknowledge that. We respect it. We honor that. It is your right to do with your body as you choose. However, that's not what we do as a program. So, when people come to the Whole30 and say, I want to lose weight, it's like, understood. Absolutely accept that if that's what you want to do. And also, we don't count calories. We don't restrict calories. We don't, restrict or eliminate meals or meal timing or portions. So what we're going to do is invite you to sort of take a 30-day break from focusing on making your body smaller and see what else can happen when you change all of the foods that you put on your plate. So I think people do still think of it as a weight loss diet because weight loss can happen as a natural consequence of changing the food that you put on your plate, even if you're not consciously restricting calories or macronutrients and you're always eating to satiety. But because so many people come to the Whole30 looking for weight loss, I think people think, well, it's a weight loss diet in disguise. But if you really read into our books, our literature, anything on our website, we're super clear what our position is. And it's just, that's not what I do. I just don't do weight loss.
Yeah, that's the thing too. It's just when it's hard for me not to fight back when people are putting Whole30 on that list. Cause I'm like, I feel like you've not even read anything about it. You only think, 30-day diet, unsustainable. And it's just it's not supposed to be. It's literally like an elimination diet to help you figure out what food sensitivity is. It's basically what a GI doctor would give you if you were having symptoms of something, So yeah, I think for me, so many people are like, oh, it causes eating disorders. It's too restrictive. And I'm come from the opposite end of the spectrum where it actually helped me get away from disordered eating because it was the first time I approached eating as a way of health, not just to be smaller or anything or even as a way to up my performance, having digestive issues and being tired of it. So not weighing out food or not paying attention to weight was a game changer for me.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, man, I want to fight you when you say that it like leads to eating disorders or anything like
Well,
that.
I do want to be fair though. When it comes to any kind of restrictive diet, and any elimination diet is restrictive by nature, that degree of restriction can certainly trigger someone who has a history of disordered eating. And I'll be super clear, can also create disordered eating habits or thoughts when none existed before. That is a fact of this degree of restriction. And because elimination diets need to be completed very strictly in order to gain the best learnings, it's an aspect of the Whole30 that is what it is. And that's why we generally say the program is contraindicated if you have a history of disordered eating. And I'm far more, I think, upfront and vocal about that now than I may have been in the past. On the other hand, I hear a lot of people like you who say, I came from diet culture and weight loss diet culture, and the Whole30 was the first time I did something different. And I didn't focus on my body and my weight, and I didn't think about my weight, in line with my value as a person. And I looked at all of the other things that happened when I changed the food that I put on my plate, and I got back in touch with my body's own natural hunger and satiety signals, and I learned to trust my body again for the first time in a long time, and I learned other ways to navigate stress and discomfort and negative emotions. It can be an incredibly powerful experience from people who have come from, which is basically all of us, weight loss diet culture.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it depends like which side you come from.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about like knowing yourself and what is best for you. So I think that goes for anything. It's like,
Yeah.
is this going to be good for you? Maybe, maybe not,
Yeah.
depending how you're feeling. What's your mental state? So yeah. So on that front, since we talked last, you've kind of branched out and you wrote a book on boundaries. So yeah, like tell us about that. Like, was it scary to kind of step outside the nutrition realm of things? What inspired that, and were you kind of afraid how your audience might perceive that?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was a risk, right? I know more about the Whole30 than anybody on the planet because I co-founded it. I did the very first one. Like I created, I've done all the writing since day one. But Whole30 is a little bit of like a boundary introduction anyway, because when you're doing an elimination diet, you have to learn to say no to the foods that are not part of elimination. It's the break room donuts, it's the glass of wine at happy hour, it's the birthday party cake. And I quickly realized many, many years ago that people really struggled to say no, even with something as simple as food or drink. So I was teaching people how to hold boundaries around food and drink on the Whole30. And once they figured out I was really good at that, they started asking me about other scenarios. How do I say no to my mother-in-law who's always dropping by without calling, or the coworker who's always trying to bring me into her gossip? And this really came to a head in 2020 when, during the pandemic, work and school and kids and house stuff all bled together. And especially women and especially moms realized that we didn't have any boundaries, and people were so burned out and so overworked. And the idea for the book came to me in October 2020. I talked to my agent and I was like, I want to write this book. Here's what I want to talk about. Here's how I think I want to do it differently than, other people who have talked about boundaries. And we were just off and running. So it was a little scary, but I also had a lot of practice doing it with my community online.
Yeah, that's really cool. And
Yeah.
I don't think I made that connection as far as, setting boundaries with people with food, because that's so true. I think that's one of the biggest things my clients, they struggle with, going to social events, saying no, or even like bringing their own food because of the pressure, or just feeling like people are going to think they're weird or rude. So yeah, that's a good. So would you say, do you recommend people read the boundaries book first before they hop into Whole30?
I think that you can definitely start with Whole30. And I have, of course, woven a lot of language into some of my books around how to talk to people, friends and family about food. In Food Freedom Forever, there's an entire section devoted to talking to people about food. The Book of Boundaries also has a chapter on food, drink, and table talk, which is like talking about diet or weight loss or calories or your body at the table in an environment that feels uncomfortable to you. So either place you start, you're going to get that sort of boundary introduction and the practice doing it for sure. But I kind of think of Whole30 like a boundary boot camp, where it's a good training ground, because if your own boundary script doesn't work, or if it feels a little tentative or you get pushback, you can always fall back on the program rules. Okay, I tried to say no. You're pushing back now. I can't. I'm doing the Whole30. I'm committed. It's not happening. And so that gives you a little bit of comfort and a little bit of structure as you practice this language for yourself. And hopefully, by the time elimination and reintroduction are over, now you've had so much practice that you're comfortable saying, oh, yeah, I'd love to come to happy hour. I'm not drinking right now, but like I'll grab a glass of sparkling water and see you in an hour.
Yeah. And it carries over because I feel like there's so many times people say yes to things they really don't want to do. It's like, it doesn't have to be food. It could be anything.
Yes.
So yeah, that's awesome. Are there any other kind of like future side projects you're working on that's kind of
I'm switching back to Whole30. I switched back to Whole30 last year. I wrote the new Whole30, which came out in August of 2024. I'm like, what year is it? So that just came out 6 months ago. And that is a complete refresher update of our initial flagship book, the Whole30, that I wrote in 2015. And I'm back in Whole30 land for a little while, but I think there's one more book in me, and it has to be because I'm already contracted for it. But that's going to be a little bit more of a personal book. And that one makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit, but we're not there just yet. So someday.
So doing scary things, essentially. Always the fun part. Cool. Well, another thing, I want to talk about was your business in general and your business values. Because it's funny. So I had a really bad experience last year where I like hired a business mentor, and it was essentially a scam. And there's so many business coaches out there, and I'm like, you know what, like, for example, take you've literally, started your business ground up, and at no point have you been like, you didn't become a business coach before you had been in business over 10 years. Like, you've been at it for a long time, and you just persevered, you just focused, you stayed in your lane, that sort of thing. So I can only imagine you actually contain like all the business advice anyone might need because you've walked the walk. But yeah, so I want to talk about your values, but especially in a time like this where, even the wellness space is so divided right now. It got even more like, it was a bit religious before it. Now it's like political on top of it. So I really like respect how consistent you've been, or how outspoken you've been to like protect marginalized communities and be like, you talk about it. And like, do you ever get nervous? Like, were you afraid at first, like how that could impact your business, and how did you find the courage for that?
Yeah, I think any business owner or any brand or anybody who makes money by having a presence online on social media, you'd be lying if you said you weren't scared to start talking about some of your beliefs. But, I go real hard on my personal channel. I make absolutely no bones about where I stand, what my values are. And like, if you want to unfollow me, I consider it spring cleaning. But I will also say, as a brand, like Whole30 goes pretty hard too. And as a team, we've been talking about this since 2017. But of course, in 2020, it really came to a head, right? With the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd. And I think a lot of brands were feeling the pressure to step up and say something. You saw a lot of black squares. And I felt like all we had to do at Whole30 was just keep doing what we were doing because we were already doing it. So I think that made that experience a little more comfortable for my team, because I was like, we've been doing this. But we did an exercise at our team offsite, might have been 2018 or 2019, where we specifically talked about our values: diversity, equity, inclusion, protecting marginalized communities, building our community with people and not for people. And we did this exercise where we were like, what's at stake if we come out and say Black Lives Matter, trans lives matter, trans men are men, trans women are women, like all of these values, what's at stake if we do that? And we went through this exercise where it was like, we could lose community members. Half the people could not want to follow us anymore. We could lose sponsors. We could lose money. We could lose publicity. Like, sure, absolutely. All of that stuff could happen. But then we looked at what would happen if we didn't. And every single person on my team realized, first of all, we could never live with ourselves if we weren't going to live our values. I don't want to run a company unless I can run it according to my value system. Hard stop. We also realized that we would be letting our community down. And I'm telling you, Whole30, the heart of Whole30 is our community. And we put the community first with any decision we ever make. Is this good for the community? And we realized that if we weren't advocating for other people the way we have always advocated for people who looked like me, we were doing a huge disservice. We were making it feel as though the Whole30 wasn't for everyone, which, my goal has always been to help as many people succeed with the Whole30 as possible. We were certainly not living our values. We weren't standing up for people who were already in our community, and I think looking to us to take a stand. And we decided that like all of that other stuff was 1,000% worth it if we could feel good about what we were doing, stand firmly in our values, and most important, make everyone who came to the Whole30 feel like they saw themselves represented, that we heard them, and that we were building the program with them in partnership. And from then on, I think it hasn't been as challenging. We still have to think very hard about what we say and when we say it. And there's still a lot of conversation around how we do that. But everyone on my team stands behind our values, and everyone on the team is ready to like throw down for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's still, even being careful, I feel like it's still very anxiety provoking. Like, even for me, just you have to think of all the different ways that someone might take something, or it's impossible to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I always have to like remind myself at the end of the day, like if it's what I believe in is my value, then yes, I'm okay with putting this out, even if I don't get the best reaction from it, even though it's not fun.
I do really, I try to protect my team, my social media management team, especially those who are in community management. When we throw something like that out that we know is going to be divisive, I'll either take the comments myself because I have a ton of privilege. So like, this is where I get to use that privilege, or we'll just turn off comments because I'm not interested in your opinion about our Pride Creator, Recipe Creator, or AAPI month creators. Like, we're not interested in your opinion about it. We're showcasing these beautiful recipes, these amazing creators. But, I remind people all the time, when you come to me and ask a question about the Whole30 or boundaries, or you ask for my help, I don't ask who you voted for. I don't ask what your values are. If you come to me for help, I'm going to help you succeed. That's what I'm here to do. Right. So if you choose to unfollow because our values don't match, that's fine. You can go find some other resource or some other program. I'm okay with that. But also, if you come back and ask me for help, like, I'm going to help you because that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody has a body that, needs to move and eat. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, like who you vote for is really not related to, getting help, I guess you could say.
I'm not going to draw a line in the sand that says I'm not going to help people based on who they vote for. Now, listen, if you come at me with some wild opinions and conjectures and like, yes, we're going to block you, we're going to remove you from the community. But, there are plenty of people in my community who say to me, I don't agree with you on a whole lot of things, but I follow you because you're open-minded. You are willing to have these conversations, which I am to a degree. So I really admire that of folks.
Yeah, I think that's where the biggest thing is, like when there are the kind of middle ground people who are okay with disagreements, that makes a big difference. So it's like, even if you voted one way, I voted the other, but we can both just still be humans to each other. Cool. That's fine. Yeah. But when they're like in your face about it, it's like, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. If you start popping off about, how other people don't deserve the same rights that you and I have, like that's the line in the sand, and that's a real hard line.
Yeah, exactly. So, did you find that it impacted your business in any way, like negatively, positively? Were there moments that, you kind of felt scared to speak out, but you did anyways?
I don't think it negatively impacted us at all, which is a testament, one, to our partners, the brands that we choose to partner with, the fact that we did our homework and recognized that they also, share at least to some degree our values, but they were also at least willing to support, even if they weren't, in lockstep. That's a statement to that. I think the people who left, and that's cool, but the people who stayed so appreciated the stand that we were taking that they became more loyal. They became more involved. And for me, that's a huge win. That's a huge win. If just one person says to me today, like, I actually got a message about this today. Someone said the preface of your book in the new Whole30 where you talk about your privilege. and the way other people's lived experience does not match your own because of your privilege, like that meant the world to me. I felt like I couldn't do the Whole30 before because what you were and talked about was so unrelatable. And now I feel like, okay, you see me, you get it. That means everything to me. Like that message was the highlight of my week.
I think that's cool too. That like you could definitely see the evolution of Whole30 and your journey and everything like that. And I guess what kind of inspired it? Was it just kind of gradual? Was it like, I mean, obviously the 2060 election was kind of a thing where a lot of things got divided, but a lot of people evolved one way or the other. Would you say it was like kind of that era or maybe the COVID era? It's like either
Yeah.
2016 or 2020 is very distinctual for people.
Yeah. No, it happened before that, actually. I became a mom in 2013. And I realized that so much of the advice I was giving people around eating and moving their bodies was so incredibly, I was one of those people who used to say we all have the same 24 hours and it's all about priorities. And then I had a baby and I wanted to smack myself forever saying that, right? So now I realize that like my lived experience doesn't match everyone else's. And then in 2016, I became exposed to the idea of privilege. Like, what is privilege? What does it mean? How do I move through the world easier just because of the way I was born? And that was so expansive for me, just the recognition of that concept and then looking for ways. I mean, once you see it, you see it everywhere. And then I started thinking, well, the way I'm talking to people about Whole30 and the way I'm talking about going through the Whole30 and how like this isn't hard is really just like it's so wrong, but it's also it's so condescending. It was really, I've stepped in it a number of times and I look back at some of the things I wrote and they live forever, right? That book I wrote in 2012 is still out there. And I look
Yes.
back at it and I'm like, dang, like I wish I hadn't said it like that. And so over the years, I think it's just been a matter of listening to my community has made a huge impact on that too. Listening to people say, hey, when you say the Whole30 isn't hard, here's where it's hard for me. Here's something that you've always had thin privilege. You've never had to like walk into a gym and feel stared at and othered and discriminated against because of your body. But here's what I go through. Listening to those stories made a huge difference. Doing my own reading and research made a huge difference. Starting to talk about these concepts with Whole30 made a huge difference. So I think it's been an evolution of me personally going through a very public divorce and business split and having a baby and all of that, but also honestly listening to my community say, hey, when you tell me this isn't hard, that doesn't make me feel good. And it makes me feel like you don't understand my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
That's, I respect that exponentially just because I think a lot of people are unwilling. Like, even if you do evolve, they just kind of try to hide it or
Oh,
just like stick to what they used to put out there. And
yeah.
you've like allowed yourself to evolve and like publicly do so, which is huge. It's not, like basically you look up to people who maybe admit that they were wrong or that something they said maybe wasn't the greatest, or I'm not saying you were wrong because it still resonated with the me that was back in, the
Yeah.
day. So it probably still resonates with some people, but, yeah, no, I just respect the way that you're able to kind of evolve publicly and out loud. And you're just like, yeah, I said that. Don't like it, but we're changing.
Yeah. I mean, that's not for like kudos or recognition. It's because I spent a lot of time in the earliest days of Whole30 trying to craft this image that I was like perfect Whole30 Melissa. I needed everyone to think that I was perfect. I ate perfectly. I moved perfectly. My morning routine was perfect. I never got flustered. I always had the answer to a question. My personal life was a mess. I was so unhappy. There was all this stuff happening in the background. And I felt like the messier that got, the more I had to show up perfectly. And then when that literally broke, during my divorce and business split, I was like, the only way that I can feel good about showing up publicly, because my life is pretty public, is if I do it with my whole chest. Right. And so it feels good to me to say that thing I said. I don't like that I said it that way. I wish I hadn't. Here's what I've learned since then. And here's how I would say it today. That feels good to me. It feels right. It allows me to continue showing up. I'm glad it resonates with other people, but I'm doing that for me because
Yeah.
I think it's like the right thing for me to do.
Yeah. Do you feel like you like kind of struggled with perfectionism at one point, or maybe you still do? I know I do, but
No, I definitely don't struggle with perfectionism anymore. And I think even then, it wasn't necessarily perfectionism. It was that, I mean, a lot of imposter syndrome for sure. My partnership in my marriage, and he was also my business partner, was really, really toxic and very unhealthy. And that put a lot of ideas in my head about my qualifications, how good I was at my work, how good I was at writing, how good I was at talking to people, how good I was at leading and guiding people through this program, and whether I was capable of actually building it out and doing something more with it. So it wasn't that I was a perfectionist. It was just I felt so insecure on the inside about all aspects of my life that I felt like I had to build up this super thick, super tough, completely rigid armor.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to like other business owners, maybe that are afraid of losing their audience if they speak out, about things socially, politically, or maybe they're evolving and they're afraid to say something? Yeah, like what advice would you give?
Yeah, I'll go back to we worked with several diversity, equity, and inclusion experts, coaches. We had many consultations. Like we wanted to learn how to do this well for ourselves by people who were experts in the field. And I remember it was probably, I think it was 2017, talking to, I won't name them, but talking to someone very prominent in this field, incredibly well respected. And I was talking about do we put on the page what our hiring practices are? Do we put on the page what our, who shows up on social media and that we're working to be more inclusive of? And this person was like, no, you just do it. You don't talk about it, just be about it. Just do it so that when people come to your page, they see diversity in gender and ability and sexual orientation and socioeconomic status and body size. Like we want to see the broadest range. And when we look at your team, we want to make sure that the candidate pool that you are hiring from represents the world that we live in. And we should see that reflected in your team structure. Like, don't talk about it, just be about it. And from that point on, we were like, okay, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And I feel like that's a really good place for any business to start. You don't have to go out and make this. I feel like sometimes going out and making this super line in the sand declaration, like we have, almost puts a target in your back because now people expect so much of you. And if you're not constantly speaking to all of the issues that are important to everybody, which is literally impossible,
Yeah.
it can be very hard. Like you said, you can't make everyone happy, but if you're not comfortable speaking up about it, you can just be about it.
Yeah.
You can do so in ways that indicate where your values are without being so divisive as to making an entire post all about XYZ. And like, please don't be performative about it. That's the other piece. I mean, people can really see right through that. And I look at Target as a good example. There was pressure. They included more pride material. Now there's pressure and they've backed out of their DEI. It's like, I haven't shopped at Target in months. And I
Yeah.
think they're going to have a really hard time earning people's trust back because they're blowing with the wind. And like, if you're going to get into this, you have to know what your values are and you have to know how to express them. And then you have to stand by them.
Yeah. It really definitely, there's a lot of true colors that are going to be shown through this year, especially with like big corporations who celebrated pride events and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's not going to be as popular to do nowadays. So it's like paying attention of who's saying something or, like
Yeah.
speaking out. It's been very quiet.
It has. It has. I
So,
never had Costco and Harvard University leading the resistance. Like that was not on my bingo card, but I am so here for it.
me
And for
either.
those brands that are standing up for it, now it's like I am even more fiercely loyal. I literally used to go to Target every single weekend, haven't shopped there once. They've lost thousands of my dollars, but I am now a Costco stan for life. I was before, but so I think the brands that are willing to stand by their values are going to find the same fiercely loyal, supportive community. Like their people will find them.
Yeah, most definitely. And if at the end of the day, it's not hurting anyone. So,
I
yeah.
mean, I get people all the time who take issue with phrases, right? Pregnant people. And I will get women who come into my feed and they're like, why can't you just call them pregnant women? And I can't tell you how many times I have said being inclusive takes nothing away from you. But when you are used to having this level of privilege, including other people somehow feels like oppression. And I'm telling you that it's not. And if I can make one small word change to make someone else feel more included, why wouldn't I do that? And like, why wouldn't you want that? I have been here. I could get on my soapbox about this, but I have been here supporting and advocating for people who look like you since day one, and everybody else does too. And now you're upset that other people are getting the same kind of recognition and support that you have. Like, make it make sense. I get real mad at those people.
For good reason.
I,
Yeah. So, I mean, as someone who's being on some to social media, like I have a small following in comparison. But yeah, it can be hard because, you never know what kind of punches are going to get thrown at you. So how do you like take care of yourself? How do you not get burned out and just hate social media
I
altogether?
know.
Maybe you do. It's like when your business depends on it, you're just like, I don't have the option. I have to show up. So this is
Yeah,
how I'm going to do it.
I know. I think boundaries are a really important thing, boundaries with yourself and boundaries with other people on social media. So when I need a break, I take a break. Hard stop. I will not post for 4 days in a row if I need a break. And like, I will literally tell my paid sponsors, I can't post this weekend. It doesn't feel right. And they'll go, okay. Every single brand I work with is so understanding of that and so respectful of that, which I admire tremendously. That's why I work with them. I block and restrict as needed effortlessly. Sometimes, like yesterday, I turned off comments. I'm not going to manage comments today. Like, not needed. I said what I said, and this is what I think. I think sometimes, I spoke to this yesterday, like there are so many things happening in the world, and also life is still happening. I'm still hiking. I'm still running. My dog is still cute. So, like, I want to share about both of those things. And I need you to understand that just because I'm talking about like my dog or my hair or my shoes doesn't mean I don't care about those other things.
Yeah.
But both things have to exist. And it can't be doom and gloom all the time, or I will lose my mind. And I think other people will too. So it's a matter of like preserving your own energy so you can stay kind of sustained in what you want to advocate for, but also recognizing that there has to be moments of joy. There have to be glimmers. There have to be casual conversations. I can care about this, but I can also talk about my shoes. And like both of those things can and should coexist, I think.
Yeah, and it's good to have well-rounded content, something a little lighter for
Yeah.
otherwise it's just depressing.
Yes. Yes.
So some kind of like wrap up questions. Feel free to be like, no, I don't want to answer that. But if you could go back and give, let's say, like 2010 Melissa one piece of advice, what would it be?
People have asked me this before, and I always say I wouldn't say anything because she would never listen to me. She would never have listened. Never have listened. Which is very true. But if there was one thing I wish I could have instilled in myself, was just that sense of self. The fact that if you show up as yourself, you will never get it wrong. That's something that took me a very long time to learn. And now that I've learned it, I feel so incredibly comfortable and grounded and centered in that. I wish I had learned it earlier, but probably the fact that I didn't learn it earlier and I struggle with it for so long is why I feel so comfortable. So I have zero, I wouldn't change a thing, and I have zero regrets, but that would be maybe one thing.
Hey, that works. So let's see, two more for you. So what are you most proud of right now, whether it's business, personal growth, or just life in general?
Yeah. When I get really stressed out with work or the state of the world or whatever, I really struggle with maintaining connection with people. When I get stressed, I just really like to push people away and spend all this time by myself and stay in my own head. And I'm actually really proud of myself that I've been working on that a lot in the last 6 months in therapy and with some of my own self-work. And my husband just the other day was like, I know how stressed you are, but I'm telling you, you don't seem that stressed. And I was like, I love that. I love that. If he's noticing that I'm able to stay more present and connected, even as I experience some stress, I think that's a win. And I'm really like proud of the work that I've done there.
Awesome. Yeah. So this one's kind of unrelated and a little backwards. Probably should have asked it sooner. But pertaining to like the wellness community being kind of divided to the point where you can almost tell which way someone voted by the way they eat. Like someone's like all carnivore, you're like, oh, okay, I know who you probably voted for. Or if someone is more on like the intuitive eating kind of spectrum where you're like, okay, kind of probably know who you voted for, or if there's someone trying to get food dyes banned, and you're like, okay, I know where you probably.
Yeah.
um, so like, how I'm not sure if you're like still involved with the wellness space. It's just like I feel like everyone who kind of came up when you did, it was like the paleo era with the CrossFit, and a lot of that community has gone, kind of the
Mhm.
other direction. Uh, do you still interact? Is it, I guess, can you, is it amicable if you do? And how do you kind of navigate those sorts of things? Or do you feel like people put you in the box of like, Maha and all that sort of, or can you have your toe slightly in it and be like, well, there's some things I agree with, then there's other things that I don't? Or do people just want you to be like,
Yeah.
you got to choose?
This is such a juicy question. It's so funny. I was talking to someone the other day about a proposed TED Talk, me coming on and doing a TED Talk, and I was sharing the concept I wanted to talk about and like my philosophy, and the person interrupted me and was like, "I'm so sorry, but I really assumed that you were like a food babe kind of person, and I just realized like how wrong I was." And it was like, "Oh, okay, I appreciate that. Thank you." Here's so there are people who I kind of grew up with that I still am super duper close with. Danielle Walker, Michelle Tam, Haley and
Yeah.
Bill from Primal Palette. I think we've stayed super close. We also share the same values. I think, share the same kind of belief system. But here's what I will say, because I've had a lot of conversations with my team about this. Whole30's mission is to empower people to change their lives one person at a time. And that has been our mission since day one. And that mission is our anchor. So when people are talking about should we ban food dyes at a systemic level, that's not my business. That's not what I do. I help people one person at a time. When people are talking about do I want to wade into this Maha conversation? Like, I do not. This is what we do. Whole30, we're not involved at the school level. We're not involved at the government level. We're not involved at the policy level. We're not involved at the hospital level. I get a lot of requests for like, oh, I think you guys could do so good in corporate wellness or XYZ. And it's like, that's not what we do. And sticking to that, I think, has helped us very much focus and become very, very good at what we do because we're not trying to have our fingers in all of those other things. But I'm also not trying to get involved in those back and forth conversations that tend to be so black and white on social media, but we all know have to be so nuanced and able in order to be discussed effectively.
Yeah.
I can't do that in 180 characters on social media. So, I mind my business. I stick to what we do. I have had to unfollow and sort of distance myself from some people who I feel as though sadly I no longer share values with. And that's sad. Sure.
Yeah.
That's like a super bummer personally. I don't, I still wish that person well, but it's a bummer to see the divergent paths. But yeah, I know what we do at Whole30. We stick to what we do at Whole30 and we continue to just change lives through this one mission.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because I know sometimes I struggle. I'm like, okay, I'm telling people to eat whole foods and like less processed foods. Why do I feel that got political real quick? Or they're just like, are you, a Maha? I'm like, literally, I've been saying this forever. No, like, please.
Yeah, I know. There's so much. I have talked about it to the degree that I will talk about the fact that so many of these super high level arguments, if you want to say ultra processed foods are bad or unhealthy, I have to say for whom and in what context. There are no universally healthy or unhealthy foods, period. So if you want to talk about food deserts, if you want to talk about like any of the social determinants of health, if you want to talk about the fact that some ultra processed foods are fortified and contain vitamins and minerals, and also all foods fit within a broad and varied, joyful, sustainable diet, we can have that conversation. And I will, and I have talked about that at length. I don't like it when people just say this food is toxic. I mean, I don't like the word toxic around food. I don't like the word poison around food. I do not like any universal this food is good or bad because that literally doesn't exist. Those are the places that I will go, which tiptoes into that area without like necessarily directly calling it out. And there are some people that I follow and that I engage with who I think do a brilliant job addressing some of the nuances and bringing in the social determinants of health, which so many people just like don't want to talk about or acknowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. It's weird to navigate at this time.
It is. It can be real weird. Yeah. I feel
Didn't see it coming. Didn't see it coming. So yeah, I guess Yeah, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you have a lot going on, but where can people connect with you? And yeah, is there anything else coming up that you're excited
Yeah.
about that you want to share?
Yes, well, we're running a huge group Whole30 starting May 1st.
Oh,
So
awesome.
if you want to do a Whole30, this is one where the entire community starts together and there's tons of extra like support and connection. We just launched our first ever Whole30 Foundations course. So if you want to do the Whole30, but you want extra support and guidance and motivation, it's a day to day, every single day you wake up to a video from me that talks about exactly what you are experiencing on that day and the tools that you need to succeed and kind of move through. Because after watching people go through the Whole30 for 16 years, I know exactly what you're feeling on exactly what day. So that's really exciting. And of course, the Whole30 is also completely free. You can do the program without buying anything but the food you eat. Just go to our website. All of the details are there. So that's also something that's really important to us, is that accessibility. So you can find everything about Whole30 at Whole30, WHOLE and the number 30. And then I'm most active on Instagram at Melissa Yu.
Awesome. I love that it's free, and I would
Mhm.
pay for it if I had to, but it's awesome that it's free.
Thank you.
Cool. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time and telling us all about your business and your values. I know it's really important, especially right now. So yeah, I guess that's it. Just
Thanks
thank
for
you so
having
much.
me. It was so good to chat with you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and talk to you next time.